A superhero movie in a pandemic. Deathstroke Knights and Dragons is an animated feature about the assassin Slade Wilson, not Wade Wilson, aka Deathstroke, as he fights the criminal organization named Hive, bent on taking over the world. This just came out on August 4th, but does have a little bit of a weird history that I will get into later. So Deathstroke is a DC Comics character. This is part of their universe. This movie, though, it's fairly standalone. You're not going to see really any other characters outside of what would have been in the Deathstroke comics. You're not getting like weird Batman tie-ins or movie tie-ins or other animated tie-ins. It's pretty much in its own universe. And being animated has, its upsides and its downsides. For style, I would say that it's very thin-lined, some sharp edges to stuff, how it's drawn. I might put a reference of probably like Daredevil Ninja, the comic, because I felt like it was somewhat close, probably more detailed than that comic though. And the production, I guess, would be a little bit inconsistent. I have a little bit of a high bar of what I like for animation to look like. And there are moments where you're like, okay, this looks a little bit choppy for me. And that's actually like kind of the non-important action. Like if somebody's just running, I'm like, oh, it just looks a little off. But for the main action stuff, like people fighting and really the important action parts, you can definitely tell that's where all the care went into and money. And this thing is chocked full of action. I was pretty shocked. I would say about the first half is very much like action scene, a little bit of exposition, action scene, and so on. And it does that for a good chunk, half of the film, maybe 2/3, and then you have like the lead into the finale and the finale. And that's where I'm going to go into a little bit of the weird history. Apparently, this project started out as something for the CW Seed app. So I guess it would be for the CW network and kind of their online original content thing. I guess they had a couple of cartoons under it, and this was one of them. It was, I guess, probably conceived for 6 to 8 minute episodes. What they ended up doing is putting out one episode at about 36 minutes, which is the first 36 minutes of this film that runs at about an hour and a half. So in retrospect, when I'm watching it, I'm thinking, okay, there's a lot of action, good fair amount of dialogue. It's very exposition type dialogue though, and so looking back, it definitely feels like this is supposed to be a chunk, and flow that way. In initially watching it, it didn't flow that bad. I was just maybe too taken aback by how good some of the action was. And there's an animated style flourish here and there. There's like some shading that have to do with like polka dot shading or line shading. Nothing too fancy. It's not like that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse craziness, but I like those little touches like that. Sometimes Slade Wilson, his powers are just healing, really not too much more than that aside from just being a badass. But sometimes in the action, it goes a little bit anime, like you almost can't see him, he's so fast and crazy. Like there's even a part where like somebody gets diced up and you don't even really see him except for maybe a part of a blur. I like that over the topness. I couldn't help comparing this a bit to Bloodshot though, just the similarity in powers and background and stuff like that. I like this more than Bloodshot though. When it comes to the story, I never found Deathstroke's story all too interesting. I've read some of the comics. I never got too deep into a lot of Deathstroke storylines. I remember reading some of his origin stuff having to do with his son and things like that. And this seems to follow a lot of that, maybe with some retconning, some super nerdy comic book stuff that doesn't matter too much. It's really nothing you have to think about. You can just enjoy the story as is. Everything really gets a lot into family and decisions. A lot of it is about Slade making bad decisions and his past coming back to him over and over and over. And I kind of like that the people around him don't give him a pass on that. You're just like, oh yeah, you're kind of a POS, and these people, they see that and they're calling you out on it. When it comes to action and subject matter of the drama and stuff, this is very adult, I give it a little bit of a pass somewhat on some of the dialogue being more exposition-y just because it is animated. It feels like it's more fine, I guess, than in a live action movie because the voice acting is really good. But there's sex, a lot of blood, fair amount of cussing, It's like a more serious Deadpool, and Deadpool is inspired by Slade Wilson. Slade's backstory I never felt was too interesting, but there's enough compounded drama into it that it was passable. In some aspects, he was maybe a little bit less sympathetic as a character because you are kind of like, yeah, you're kind of a not great person to the people around you. But it also just didn't cop out to writing things in the easy way. So I would say the good points are, really good action, lots of it. Some dialogue's a little stilted, but the underlying story is really there. There is, a lot of emotions going on with characters. Some of the voice acting helps sell it, animation, and it's a superhero movie. We're not getting too many of those. We had Code 8, I want to say, about a month ago. I think the Old Guard, I guess you could put that in there, and I want to say there's one more coming up on Netflix this month, but this month is dry for new releases. So this is something to at least put in the back of your head if you really want to watch something. So I'm gonna give this a 3 out of 4. It feels high in some respects, but every time I'm trying to think to myself what bringing it lower, I keep convincing myself to bring it back up. I enjoyed it. It is graded on a curve a bit, being animated, being during a pandemic. I'm sure not going to fight anybody that disagrees with that rating. But I hope it at least allows you to make a decision if you're going to watch it. I don't know if it's probably not worth the buying price right now, but renting. And I do hope they probably turn this into, if not another movie, a whole series, on DC Universe. I watch Harley Quinn. I find it to be really good. I don't watch too many of the animated shows or even the DC stuff, but I've watched Harley Quinn. I like it a lot. And I feel like this could at least, maybe not be as good as Harley Quinn, but it could easily be up there. Apologize if this is more rambly. It's a lot more off the cuff. I do have stage fright, so I'm trying to get used to that. Feedback is always good and appreciated. Try not to get too bored this August. Peace.